welcome to the next episode of the Research Sofa. I'm here today with Emma Bailey from Equally Well, who's going to be talking about a new resource that they've just recently launched.
Thank you, Emily, and thanks for having me on the sofa. For those of you that don't know Equally Well, it was set up in New Zealand by a previous colleague of the Centre for Mental Health, Helen Lockett. She had worked with Andy Bell, and the two of them, very luckily for us, joined forces and decided that we'd do Equally Well in the UK. Since then, we've had a growing membership, including Closing the Gap as well, sharing research that our members have done, and also our own research, with this being one of them. We were in talks with NHS England, and we were trying to work out if there's anything that's been happening at the moment to help combat any services that have been postponed, or physical health checks that are changing, and to make sure that people with severe mental illness were still able to manage their physical health during the COVID pandemic. Obviously, at the moment, things are tricky, and we do understand that. So we made sure that the resource was created with experts by experience, and it wasn't us deciding what would be said. So with help from NHS England and NHS Improvement, we were able to create this resource. We started off by having a number of conversations, including a great chat with Emily at the start of it as well. And we had a few of our expert by experience members heavily involved in conversation, sharing some of their experiences during COVID and lockdown. And I think there were a few key pointers, from tobacco smoking to healthy weight management, and I'll go into those in a little bit more detail for you, for anyone that hasn't read it or just wants a little bit of background on things that were shared that might not have fed into the resource as much. So COVID-19 is a respiratory virus, as most of you will know, and it affects the lungs and airways. With that being said, it's really important, and it's the best time to look at quitting smoking. It's not always easy for people to quit smoking, so we were keen to factor in different resources and experiences on ways to quit, and we luckily had some great tips, one from the Scimitar trial, which was on keeping a diary to see how you feel. We also had some other aspects come from people, which was that your sugar cravings go up, so therefore keep healthy snacks around, because you might end up resorting to wanting more sweets instead. One of our expert by experience members shared that when he quit smoking, he took up gaming because he needed to keep his hands busy instead of rolling a cigarette. So there were a number of different tips that we found out, but one of the key things that we really wanted to highlight was, if you're on medication, to speak to your GP if you're quitting, because your medication levels might need to be lowered if you're quitting smoking, because the smoking levels can change medication. So it's always important to speak to your GP. So there's a number of different tips and resources that we've shared in the guide on smoking. One of the other topics was healthy eating. It was quite tricky conversations on how to support people, as one of our expert by experience members shared that she can get a takeaway in under an hour, but trying to get any form of healthy food has been a real challenge for her. Her local shop only sells unhealthy food. She wasn't even able to get apples or anything. So through conversations, we found out that the NHS volunteer scheme are able to help people with severe mental illness through food deliveries, and also collection of prescriptions and anything else that they need. So that was something that we were really keen to highlight in our resource, to make sure that people with a severe mental illness are getting the right food and medication delivered to them if they're shielding. A few others shared that they really do struggle at the moment with leaving the house due to different mental health problems, but also physical health problems. So we were really keen to feed in ways that people were getting help and support. One of them shared that he has managed to speak to the council and is getting support through getting a PA who helps him with meal prep and doing batch cooking that he pops in the freezer. And it means that he's got food ready and he's not just grabbing sugary snacks, which is something that he's really keen himself to eat healthily. So we were able to share a number of things in that section, which was fantastic. Another section that we had was keeping active. If you're stuck in your home and you can't go out due to self-isolating, this of course is quite a tricky one. So one of the things that one of our Expert by Experience members shared was things like grabbing tins of beans and just doing the old-fashioned weights, and making sure that you're trying to get steps up, so maybe just walking around a bit more, seeing if there's any physio exercises that you can do if you do have physical health problems, and just trying to keep active where possible. If you are able to go out, then of course walking in green spaces is always really beneficial for our mental health. So we shared a number of different things in there, including resources from others as well. So healthy weight management was another key factor, and that's something that we at Equally Well, but also a number of our members really try and focus on. It can be incredibly tricky sometimes to keep your weight at a sort of a place where you feel happy with and you don't feel unwell with it. So it was something that we really wanted to hone in on and try and help people as much as possible. So that was one section where we just sort of factored in healthy snacks and fitness and bringing it all together. Another key aspect that came up, which I hadn't thought about at first when we started this guide, was medication management. I heard from a few people on, not from themselves, but their peers, that they didn't think that they could see their GP, so therefore they were either stopping their medication and some of them were on quite high levels and stopping, and others didn't think they'd be able to get their prescription, so they were ordering online instead from untrusted sources. So we were really keen to emphasize that GP practices are still open and they are still able to help. And also we are in talks with different partners as well to find out the ways that COVID has changed the practices and things to encourage people that are due physical health checks or might have physical health problems, as well as potentially mental health problems, to still be in contact with their GPs. Another one was financial well-being. There was a fantastic tip from one of our Expert by Experience members who shared that he has spoken to the majority of his bill companies to see if they've got any deals or if they're able to offer a pause on his bills for the time being, as he's not able to go out and work. So we also really wanted to highlight financial planning, and the Money and Mental Health page has a number of different resources as well that we were able to share in that. And then obviously the key one at the moment is if you end up getting coronavirus, we wanted to make sure that there were a few tips in there for how to manage your mental health as well. One thing that we found out through Bipolar UK was it's not a legally binding document, but creating a consensus statement. So if you do end up getting COVID-19 and going into A&E, you could take that consensus statement with you that you could either work on with a GP or a trusted friend, just to make sure that they're aware of your medication and your needs, so that they could give you the best possible treatment. As we say, it's not legally binding though, but it might help in your treatment that you receive. It's also important to remember that if you have had COVID, that you're getting better might take a bit of time. So it's about being kind to yourself and acknowledging that these things you're not going to get over straight away, and it will take a bit of time to get back to your normal health. And then within that, we also shared a number of different helplines and resources. So it's a really great document, I must say, to go and visit on the equallywell.org.uk website. And yeah, I think that's a very quick summary of it for you.
Thanks, Emma, for that summary of what sounds to be a really useful resource. So please do go on the Equally Well website to access the resource if you'd like to do so. Really encourage you to do that. Sounds like there's some really useful tips that have been incorporated, and the tips have come from people with lived experience, which I think is really important. So thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Emma for joining us today on the Research Sofa, and bye.